when an alien lands in my backyard and says, I'll be like, yeah, my name's Jeff. How can I help you?
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wait What podcast. It's now that I'd normally say, as always, I have my lovely co-host Jono with me, but I don't have my lovely co-host Jono with me. I have a new lovely co-host, Jeff. Say hi, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
So, Jeff is not Jono's replacement. I could never do that to him. He'd never forgive me. But I am flying solo on this one because Jono's microphone is not working. So today we are talking to Jeff from the Round and Round podcast. Tell me a bit about the podcast, first of all, Jeff.
Well, I tend to summarize it thusly. Round and Round, the podcast, is a hit show. If you didn't pick it up, it's a shit show.
Nice.
It is an utter waste of time for most people to listen to. There's no reason to tune in at all. We basically record the conversations that we used to have on board USS Austin, which is, just a bunch of bullshittery. And we talk movies, we talk politics in that we make fun of everybody. We make fun of the media. Because if there's any type of person in the world that should know how to use language, it is the professional media. And when they fail, when they let us down with bad headlines, misspellings, bad grammar, patently false information, that's worth pointing out and making fun of.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And we do occasionally get some really good fodder for our jokes from over your way.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised. So we have similar sections where normally we're looking at like the weirdest ones we can find, the weirdest headlines, but they're always written terribly as well. So It's kind of like double-barreled. I go in with, listen to how ridiculous this story is, but then when I'm reading it, I'm like, I don't know how this person's a journalist.
Right.
We just have, I think it's just, it's being bred from that culture of fake news. So because there's more and more fake news and stupid headlines, there's just less effort put into writing things.
Yeah.
So it's easy now for anything to slip by because no one really cares.
And it's that, and it's a product of the 24-hour news cycle where, we're gonna constantly rush to get the next piece of news out with no sense of proofreading or copy editing or any fucking thought at all. Oh, is it okay to cuss?
Yeah. First of all, it's too late. Second of all, I do it all the time.
Okay.
It's nice that it isn't just me now. Normally Jono doesn't really swear, so this is going to be the most sweary episode, and I like it. Carry on. I might title that the most sweary episode.
Well, I am a retired United States sailor. There is a stereotype or two about we sailors, so
well, that works for me.
Great.
Okay, so originally this podcast was happening because I put out there, has anyone got any unusual stories or anything weird ever happened to them? And you came back to me with a 2-for-1 deal, which right. I couldn't turn down. So before we get into that, just because that's like the meat of this whole episode, right. I want to make people wait for it. I just wanted to ask you as well. Can you just tell me a little bit about your time? You were in the Navy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you just tell me a little bit about your time in the Navy? I'm just generally interested.
So I'm not quite a true product of the Top Gun recruitment era, although maybe a little bit. Top Gun is one of those formative movies from my childhood.
Yep.
Early in high school, I think I knew I was not going to go to college and make use of my parents' money or any kind of scholarships or anything. I knew I'd waste it. So I looked at joining the military generally as a way to earn money for college and also take a bit of time to mature and figure out what the hell I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it really it was probably the first decision I made, in that transition from childhood to adulthood, where I was taking somebody else's um, thoughts and somebody else's consideration, like into consideration first, right? Like,
Yeah. Hmm.
so I'm looking at the Army for a long time, and one of my teachers says, I don't think that makes sense. And I was like, what? And he's like, look at the Navy or something. And so I did. And it really, it was that nudge of a suggestion from a teacher that sent me the Navy way. And I looked around at what I wanted to do. And because we have a test in the US that's called the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, which
Okay.
it's basically like the old, well, again, US. So everything I talk about probably sounds stupid, but it's like sitting in the guidance counselor in high school who tells you what job best fits your personality or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Hmm.
so I take this test and do fairly well, or well enough that I'm pretty much open to any job in the Navy, which isn't a brag so much as a pain in the ass, because I went into it like hoping that more for a direction, like, oh, you should do this.
And they just sort of went anything.
Right. And instead, it's, you can do anything, which also opened up to the recruiters get like bonuses kind of for putting people into the nuclear programs, putting
Mhm.
people into submarine programs. And that was kind of the push at first. And I'm like, I will be damned if I ever serve on a ship that's built to sink. That's silly. And furthermore, I don't want to glow in the dark. So nuclear and subs are out.
They are. That's some fine decision making.
so So I decided to be an electronics technician,
Okay.
which sounds really cool. And in the 90s, this is like pre-internet. Well, no, this is in the budding of the internet. War
Mm.
games has come out, all these things that make electronics sexy, right? And interesting. And so that's what I picture in my head with the term electronics technician, and really not that, not at least. Um, So fast forward through the boot camp and through um, our vocational schools. That's the best way to put it.
Mhm.
To learn how to do that job of electronics technician,
Yeah.
and I get to my first ship, or I get orders to my first ship, and it is USS Austin, which is an amphibious assault platform, basically.
Mhm.
Um, and that means that it has a well deck where it carries tanks and smaller boats and other odds and ends,
Yep.
which means that it can kind of sink on purpose regularly, so, to flood the well deck and allow those things out the back. So I thought that was a little bit of irony there. Um, and after that, it was kind of a regular tour of the United States. Every 3 to 4 years, we'd pack up and move and go somewhere else.
Mhm.
And that's, I mean, I did some time in Norfolk, which is one of the major bases. I went to Jacksonville, Florida, spent some time on the Gulf Coast in a base that has since been closed near Corpus Christi, Texas,
Mhm.
uh, back to the Maryland, Virginia area, and then all the way across the country here to Southern California to retire. So seen a
Wow.
little bit of seen a little bit of everything, at least in the
Mhm.
States.
Yeah.
Um, I was I was fortunate enough to deploy or to do a old school Navy deployment in peacetime, which meant we went to the Mediterranean and basically port hopped for 6 months spending money.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No arguments with that. That sounds incredible, to be honest.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was that period, the Mediterranean tour or cruises, because they were really nothing more than cruises.
Yeah.
In the recreational sense, it's really what it felt like.
Mm.
I got to see places like Malta
Yeah.
and Haifa, Israel, which is an amazing. I can't speak to it now because so much has changed since '96 or so,
Mhm.
but Haifa was a great place to visit. It's a beautiful city, and the things that we were able to do from there, tours originating there and going out into um, historically significant, biblically referenced areas.
Yeah.
It's a neat feeling to experience. I think the best port visit in that period was Odessa, Ukraine. because it's freaking Ukraine. And this was in 96. So very shortly after the end of communism and Ukraine's finding its way in the capitalist society, but
Yeah.
there's still leftovers from the Soviet era,
Hmm.
statues and signage to an extent, and it was that's a great city to visit too, or at least it was.
Damn. I mean, that sounds like a pretty pretty damn good career.
It was it was
Yeah,
absolutely.
made the right choice. And again, I hark back to your point about not wanting to be on something that's made to sink. Um, I don't. You couldn't have got that any more right. Um, okay, so now here's what we're here for. You said you had two stories for me.
Hmm.
Um, I think I want to go with first of all, uh, the the major accidents story. So you've been in, were they all motor accidents?
They were.
Yeah, so you've been in three motor accidents
Yeah.
and walked away basically unscathed. So what happened? What was the first one?
So the first one, I was in um, a town called Great Lakes, Illinois, which is home to a Navy training center where I was doing that vocational training.
Hmm.
And this was in early 1995.
Right.
That's relevant in a minute. Um, so I get the idea to go visit a friend of mine who was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yep.
Um, I don't, I didn't look it up. I meant to, but it's something like a 600-mile drive that I'm going to do on Thursday evening because we had the Friday off. And then I'm going to make the return trip on Sunday.
Okay.
That was the plan. I get going along after school on Thursday. Uh, Probably nearly halfway across or through the trip. I'm in um, it's late at night. Something happens. I'm in a little pickup truck that I had just purchased recently. Uh,
How old were you at this point?
I would have been 19, turning 20. So I'm driving along. Something happens to the right front tire. The truck is pulled across to the shoulder. It then spins back across and hammers pretty much head on into the median, the guardrail, and destroys the truck. And this was in a time before cell phones. I don't know how the EMTs got word because this was late. This was after midnight or so. Roads are
Yeah.
dead. Um, but the next thing I really know is there's a paramedic leaning over me saying, and I quote, "Hey, I'm Steve. I'm going to be your paramedic. Is that all right?" And I thought, well, unless you have somebody else in mind, that'll do.
Yeah. I'll make the best of a bad like moment here, and I'll just go with yes. Any paramedic is better than none in this situation.
So I get taken to what I think was a hospital slash veterinary clinic slash bait shop because it was tiny. Um, I get, an x-ray because I had to hit my head on the airbag or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Treated and released. And when I'm being released from the hospital, they're like, okay, do you have some family to call? I'm like, no. And they look at me like I've grown a second head. And I think, and again, I am young and starting to feel my oats a little bit as far as being mouthy to people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you not understand the concept of interstate highways?
Yeah.
They're major thoroughfares meant to
Yeah.
take one person from a state through a state to another state. No, I don't have family in Kentucky, which, and then I'm like, okay, so is there a hotel? And she's like, oh, well, yeah, but I think Donna's closed it or, something like everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So she's
Yeah.
calling people at home to wake them up to get the taxi driver to give me a lift to the hotel that she has to call and have open, etc. So then I have to call a friend of mine back in Great Lakes, Illinois to come and get me so I can get back to school by Monday. So I initiate that process. And then I call my mom because, of course, right? I'm hurt. I've destroyed my brand new truck in an unfamiliar town.
Yeah.
And by the time I got back to the hotel room or got to the hotel room and settled, it was well after midnight, early enough in the morning. or late enough in the morning rather, that I figure it's okay to wake her up. And so I call her and I say, "Hey, I've totaled my truck. I'm in Kentucky." And she says, "Haha, very funny. I'm going back to bed." And I was hurt. I was dismayed. What is this? This is my mom. And then I think about the date, and it's April 1st. so,
Not the
so
best
yeah.
timing.
Yeah, well, also, not only was it April 1st, and she thought it was an April Fool's joke, it was April 1st, the date that my first payment automatically went through to the bank for that truck.
Ouch.
So, yeah, I put about, I don't know, maybe 6,000 miles on the thing and destroyed it before I ever paid for it. So. And
Nice.
yeah. So when I went back to get my personal items out of the truck that I would never drive again,
Yep.
I realized just how bad this accident was. Um, the entire front of the truck, from the A pillar forward, basically everything in front of the windshield,
Mm-hmm.
was shifted laterally about 6 or 8 inches or so.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was, and that's exactly my thought. I couldn't comprehend how I lived.
Yeah. No,
And
100%.
if I was a more spiritual person, I would take that as a sign that I was meant for great things.
Yeah.
Instead, I just continued on with my naval career. Uh,
Instead, you thought, I need a new truck.
yeah, yep, and did not get one for a little bit anyway. So that was the first one, and that was bad enough. The second one takes quite a while to get to, because that was 95. So fast forward to something like 2011, I
Okay,
think.
that's a good string of not having crashes.
Yeah. Well, major
Yeah,
crashes.
major crashes. Yeah.
um, so at this point, I was driving a little Volvo S60. So I've got this Volvo,
Yeah.
and at the point, we lived in a place called Camden, North Carolina,
Okay.
which is a rural kind of place. It's just an hour from where I was assigned in the Navy. This is back in the Norfolk area of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I'm kind of down in North Carolina, just across the border. It's rural, it's cheap, there's a lot of room for the kids. So it's cool.
Yeah.
And the road that I have to go to get home, like once I get off the highways or whatever, it's got some fun curves. The Volvo handles it very well. I'm very comfortable with this car in this environment, until there's this wonderfully like sweeping S turn that you can take at, I don't know, 55, 70, somewhere in there. And
Mm-hmm.
that's miles per hour. Y'all do miles, right?
Yeah, yeah, we do, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's odd twist. Anyway, so I got the big sweeping like S curve, and I'm getting through the first corner, and I set up just on the line of the second corner, and there's a logging truck coming towards me, a loaded logging truck coming towards me, and he's straddling the center line because he too wants to make it through these corners as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So I have a choice: hit the truck or swerve. Now, I didn't want to hit the truck. So, bonus points for the fact that I was indeed on the phone. That doesn't matter too much in the story. But, um, so I've got the phone to my face. I'm going through the corner. I see the truck, and I tell my wife, "Hold on a minute." And I throw the phone into the floorboard.
Right.
And then I swerve the car and go down into this small ditch, very shallow, no more than a foot. But that pulls the front end down into the ditch. So I'm basically going sideways at this point. And
Yeah.
then I hit the culvert, the concrete pipe, again,
Oh.
not very big, a foot or so.
Yeah, but it's enough.
It is enough to pitch pull this car.
Mm.
The car flies into the air, lands on the roof, on the passenger side, A pillar, uh, really hard, like
Yep.
flattens that a little bit, and then slides. And I think, man, this is going to really suck if it doesn't come back over to the wheels. But luckily, hit some soft dirt in this farmer's soybean field, and it did in fact flip back over. And so I'm sitting there for a minute, and I hear my wife's lovely voice screaming frenetically. Um,
Yep. I literally the entire way through listening to that story, I was just like, shit, your wife's on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, all the way through, all I kept thinking was, oh my God, your poor wife. It's just
So,
hearing this car accident happen in the background.
right. So she's screaming. What is it? What's going on? What's going on? So I pick it up and I'm like, hey, can you come and get me? I've wrecked the car. And I might be 2 miles from my house at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and it's one road. There's no options from the highway to the house. There's only one way to go. And I was in a bit of a state because I was trying to quit smoking at this point, so I'm already a little nervy. I've just wrecked a car. And she says to me, okay, where are you? And unfortunately, my temper reared its head at this point. So I said, how about you drive towards the highway and look for the car in the fucking field?
To be fair, that's exactly how I would responded.
And, I feel bad about it now. It was funny to me, kind of like,
Hmm.
trust me. And I guess the point I was trying to make is you can't possibly miss what's left of my Volvo smoking in a soybean field,
Yeah,
but it
it's
came out of
it's
nowhere.
the only one. Like,
Right.
I'm not in a car park full of smoking Volvos that is on top of a field. I am the one smoking Volvo.
Right. Um, so the owner of the farm never came out to inquire as to my condition.
It's
Um,
just went up. Oh, I've grown a car. It's just
well,
left you there.
this comes back to haunt later. A another car who was going in the same direction as me eventually came around the corner, saw me in the soybean field, and called the cops. Before, like, I called my wife first,
Yeah.
and then I was going to call the cops. But he's already got the cops coming. An ambulance comes, ask me, do you need to go to the hospital or whatever? And I'm like, nah,
I think I'm
fine,
okay.
because
Yeah.
I was. I mean, and this is, starting to weigh on me a little bit. Like, here I am again. I've destroyed this car. I destroyed this car all around me.
Yeah.
But A, it was a Volvo, and B, again, if I was a spiritual person, I'd start thinking that I'm meant for great things.
Yeah. I'm walking away again.
Right. And so I call my command and let them know what happened, and they're like, okay, well, if you need to take some time off or whatever. And I was like, why? Because no. Like, I didn't want to think about it, like, I guess there's a certain, um, maybe I had a lot of adrenaline flow and I would hurt later,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. But I never slept that night. Like, I kept thinking about because I can, like, every second of that accident I could remember.
Yeah.
And I still can. I can close my eyes and live through that sequence of events. And the thought that sticks most is, if this fucker ends up on the lid, I'm going to be pissed. I wanted it to roll back over so I could get out of the car easy.
Without having
Uh,
to like unbuckle and fall on your head.
right. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't want to do that trope, that, like, that's so overplayed in the movies.
And you're already having a bad enough day.
Right. Yeah. I was like 2 days into trying to quit smoking, which that shit went out the window because the first, my wife comes and, she's happy to see me, even though I've just ripped her head off for asking a question.
Yeah.
Um, and I look at her and I'm like, I really need a cigarette now. So,
We need to go to the nearest store. I need a
yeah, which,
cigarette.
which fortunately was just half a mile down the road in the other direction. So,
Beautiful.
that's that one. Oh, Nikes. We missed the second anniversary of the most recent by just 2 days.
Oh crap! We should have done this earlier.
If I'd only remembered, which is amazing that I've
I
put it.
mean, I mean, to be fair, this is pre-recorded for season 2. So, oh look, it's the anniversary. No one will ever know.
That's true.
Yeah.
So,
So today's the anniversary.
right. That's so weird.
Yeah,
So
this is like episode 4 of season 2, and
nice.
season 2, episode 1 starts in 11 days.
Awesome.
So we're ahead of time here.
This works out greatly then.
Yeah,
Greatly, whatever. You know what I mean?
it's all right. I can edit that out. I won't, but I could.
Right. That's good. I kind of treat shit the same way. Okay. So here in California, I've since retired. I work for a contractor doing basically the same job that I did in the Navy, but in a much more comfortable, non shippy type environment. Like I work
Okay,
in a
yeah.
building, and those buildings never move, which is cool. Like they do not rock and roll in the seas. Anyway, um, but my schedule, because of traffic and whatnot, our schedule first, we tend to work an East Coast schedule, even if we're on the West Coast, so that
Okay.
we can, the majority of our conversations, the majority of our most high command is on the East Coast, of course.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's the root of the schedule that starts at 6 in the morning over here and goes until 2:30, or, even earlier, 5 in the morning and goes until 1:30,
Yeah.
because we're working in the normal business day on the East Coast.
Okay, yeah.
It also benefits. At the time, I was working the 6 to 2:30 thing because I had a motorcycle and I commuted. Um, I rode every day, r-
Okay.
and I mean that literally, for something like 7 years. Um, when I got to California, I got a new Harley. I rode that for 3 years and put 105,000 miles on it
A
because
lot
I
of
rode
riding.
every day. It is, and it might sound, oh, so cool, such a hard ass, whatever. Not really. I was cheap and I didn't want to deal with traffic because
Yeah,
you can
fair
split
enough.
lanes here. Um, anyway, I went through some changes. I tried a different job. I got a new motorcycle, and then I went back to the contractor that I was at after I retired. I have a brand new Victory motorcycle at this point
Okay.
in there. Um, I bought it as they were shuttering the brand. Polaris no longer makes a Victory motorcycle. I bought one of the last ones in California, got a super good deal. It's only got like 4,000 miles on it, and I'm commuting back to San Diego every day. Cool. I'm about a month into this commute again, because I started working back at the contractor in March. This is April 9th of 2018. I get up like I do every morning at 3 o'clock, put on all my stuff,
Yep.
get on the bike, go to ride. No, I guess at this point it would have been I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, that's not the juicy bit. The juicy bit is this: I'm riding into work, and it's the first warm day, warm enough in the morning that I can wear my open face helmet instead of my full face.
Okay, yep.
This matters in a minute. Um, and I've got on the Victory, I've got a big windshield that protects me from the wind. I've got heated grips. I've got a heated seat. I've got a big ass stereo, and I'm
Nice.
just rocking along on my way to work as I always do. I'm not splitting lanes because there's not enough traffic for that in the morning.
Hmm.
I'm in the second lane, which isn't even the fast lane. I'm just cooking along 75, maybe 80, like I always do, keeping up
Yep.
with traffic. And maybe half a mile ahead, there's some kind of stalled, parked, or crashed vehicle on the left-hand median,
Okay, yep.
which is the inside median.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, that being way up there causes traffic in front of me to hit the brakes. I say, "Oh nuts," to myself, which is probably more like, "God damn it." So I grab up a whole lot of brake, downshift a couple times, and try to go to the third lane where there was no cars,
Yep.
so that I had more room to slow down.
Smart
It
move.
wasn't it wasn't freely open, because what I would have liked to do was get into that lane and go faster far away.
Yep.
But all four lanes were kind of plugged up with cars at this point. All the cars are moving around to try to find room to slow down. And I just wanted a couple extra feet to get stopped.
Yep.
Apparently, and I still don't know what happened. There was a car in lane 4.
Hmm.
That car also decided to go to the lane 3 at the same time.
Oh, yep.
Who got there first? I don't know. According to the California Highway Patrol, it was my fault. I have some contention with that, but I don't know, because I remember saying "oh fuck" and grabbing a lot of brakes and leaning to lane 3,
Yep.
and then I remember walking on the road and moaning.
Yeah, I mean, it's not often. In fact, it's pretty rare that two motor vehicles can occupy the same space. um,
Right. Um, Worst physics experiment ever because it failed really bad.
yeah, I mean, it normally does.
Yeah. Um, so there I am standing on the highway next to the car that I hit, I think, um, or that hit me. I still don't know. I legitimately don't know, but I'm moaning because my face hurts. But that's it. that's really it. I have all of my fingers and all of my toes, all of my arms are working.
Yeah.
All three of my legs are working. That's cool too. Um, I really wanted a cigarette, and I needed to find my phone to let people know I was not going to make it to work that day.
Yeah.
Um, so I looked down at the road, and my wallet and my ID are kind of laying forward of where my motorcycle stopped. I haven't looked at my motorcycle at this point. I just see these things on the ground in front of me, basically.
Hmm.
So, and that's because when I fill up with gas, I always forgot to zip up that pocket where I put my wallet. So it went blasting out the front of my jacket. Okay, cool. So that's how that ended there on the ground. I'm here standing next to this car, standing, mind you.
Yeah.
And then I turn around and look at my motorcycle, and my motorcycle's on its side, um, still running, but broken. And when I say broken, I don't mean like it shattered into a billion pieces or anything like that. The entire front end of this motorcycle was detached from the frame and rest of the motorcycle at the triple tree, at the
Jesus.
neck. The
Yeah.
neck cracked in half, damn near like clean, like laser line kind of crack. And it just broke, which I think enabled me to walk through the front of the thing. Like I
Jesus
think I was
Christ.
on it, and then the front end went away, and then I was basically slid over the tank and was walking.
Yeah.
I think. Um, Turns out I hit my face on the edge of the windshield, which is why I bring up the helmet all the time, because
Yeah.
I had a small scar on my left eyebrow, on the top of my lip on the left side, and my eye was like I hit it hard with my sunglasses.
Hmm.
It was the sunglasses that caused the damage to my face, and it really wasn't really damage. It was just my eye was really really swollen,
Yeah.
um, and it kind of looked like the eyeball was going to fall out, but I was fine. Like I was really fine.
Jesus
And
Christ.
I was, yeah. So the ambulance shows up, and, they're doing the roadside, like, evaluation or whatever. And they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Well, my knee hurts, but that's from earlier. Cause I wake up really weird sometimes. Like I jolt awake and can't find my feet. And sometimes it's from the shock of waking up, and other times it's because my knees are really really bad and I'm not able to support myself yet. Sometimes it's a combination of both. So I'm dead asleep, and then I'm trying to stand up fully awake, except none of my parts work yet, so then I fall to the floor. And that's what had happened that morning. And I hit my knee on, I have a little, like a valet stand to hang all my clothes for the next day on,
Hmm.
and I hit the leg of that with my knee, which kind of caused a little like raspberry or whatever. And as I'm explaining this to the paramedic, he's like, "All right, well, I'm just going to take a look anyway," and then just cuts my pants into shreds. Um, but I was fine. Like it's my face, and it's
Yeah.
only my face because I didn't wear my full face helmet. If I had worn my full face helmet, I would not have gone to the hospital. But I hit a car, or the car hit me at highway speeds, and I was on a motorcycle.
And that motorcycle ripped into two pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if I think I got rid of all the pictures finally because, it was time to let them all go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the motorcycle, like just, and that's it. And that's, I'm riding in an ambulance to go to the hospital that I didn't really want to go to. And because we have 5 kids altogether,
Hmm.
3 live in this house. Um, 2 of those are driving age and into like graduated high school and whatnot. So, they have their own lives.
Yeah.
But because of that, my wife keeps her phone on overnight normally, unless she knows people are either in or are staying somewhere that night. So there's no travel and like for, to be concerned about them.
Yeah. Of course.
Whatever the reason, her phone was actually off that night or silenced. So I text one of the girls and I'm like, "I need you to go wake up your mom." have have her text me, please, because I wasn't really making sounds out of my mouth that well.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I did have a little bit of swelling and all that, but when and when I say I walked away from a motorcycle accident, most people think, "Oh, cool, so you like just a broken leg or something, crutches?" Like, nah, bruh. Like I literally walked through the accident,
Yeah.
and I was only laying down in the hospital because they made me, and I walked out of the fucking hospital. So Yeah. And so that's the, that's the third accident where I really feel like I should have been really damaged a lot worse, and I don't understand why. I'm grateful, to whom I'm not sure. I'm a very fortunate person in these three very specific circumstances.
Mm.
And again, I feel like perhaps I am meant to do something amazing. And then I started a podcast.
Yeah, and then you ended up on this one. Um,
Right.
that's
And I
it. You finally fulfilled your prophecy of doing greatness.
wait a minute. This is it?
This is as good as it gets, man.
uh
I'm Liz Parker, and 5 days ago I died.
If you remember these iconic lines, check out Pass the Hot Sauce, a Roswell podcast.
Join 2 longtime fans and 1 newbie as we recap every episode of the original WB show, spoiler-free.
We've got new recap episodes every 2 weeks and alien-centric mini episodes.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Roswell Hot Sauce.
And check out Pass the Hot Sauce on the podcatcher of your choice.
So the funniest thing is, I was saying this to Johnny the other day. We were obviously at some point going to be talking to some paranormal investigators from the UK, and I was laughing with Johnny because I was like, I think a lot of the time people assume that British podcast, great, we're going to talk to some South London paranormal investigators, that must do great for their business. But of like the last 1,000 plays, 53% of it was from America.
right.
And so, if anything, I'm preaching to your choir right now. So, and then we have like a random amount of people that listen in Russia. So,
Oh, lucky bastards.
I know we've been listened to in like 25 or 26 different countries, and I don't like that. We had like, I think there was one episode that did really well in India, and I had no idea why. I think just one person was just like, I love this episode, and just told everyone, like every person they knew, and then all their friends listened, and then
They were like,
there was just a spike of like 30 people in India that listened to this one episode, and then never again.
I go through the same thing because, I mean, we started in August, so I'm still like, with the first time somebody in the UK listened, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then of course, I interact with a bunch of, obviously a bunch of podcasts on Twitter, right?
Mhm.
And there's some folks over in Australia, and there's a listener or two over there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's neat. But then the weird ones pop up, and I think the weirdest at first was Vietnam, and I was like,
Yeah, that's pretty out there.
who? Why? This doesn't. We offer nothing to you. We're not the best podcast for you. And then we joke all the time about Russia. Like, our goal is to see one from Moscow. Please, please let it be Vladdy the badass. We've got. I've actually got a map because I'm that kind of a nerd, and I've got pins in all the countries. And it's cool because like we see France and we see, Ireland or whatever. And then like 2 weeks ago, there's a download from Israel, from Tel Aviv. And I was like, huh, okay. That makes no sense too. None. 0 cents from you, but okay.
I've never really bothered to look into cities, but like I've looked at countries and stuff like that. We've had like the odd one in like Japan and Mexico, the state of Palestine, Romania, Indonesia,
Romania.
Ukraine, Pakistan. But then it really randomly ramps up when you get like there's like Saudi Arabia, which is in double digits, and
Oh wow.
Russian Federation, Singapore. Singapore at this time, because the bulk of them come from the US or from the UK,
Right.
and then we have a substantial amount in France, but that's because the jingle at the beginning of ours, like our intro music, was written by a musician in France, who just literally, we'd recorded like one episode and put it out there to see what happened, and then me and Jono then went on holiday together to see our friend in Toulouse in France.
Right.
And while we were out there, he listened to it and he was just like, I need to give you guys some intro music. And then he just wrote intro music for us and sent it over to us. So it's like the best bit of our podcast, the most produced, cleanest part. But yeah, it's I'm the same as you. Every time I hear like a random, or like every time I see, like a random country pop up, I'm like, why? I don't understand this. What did you get from?
Right.
What did you get from listening to two Brits talk about weird stuff, but also like UK headlines and like general pop culture sort of things? Like, what did you take from that? All they're doing is listening to it and going, man, Britain's weird.
Yeah.
That's all they could have possibly fucking taken from this. I just don't get it. I do not get it. But
I don't get the returns. Like Sweden, we have somebody in Sweden, and we just, our old host actually did track downloads by city where it was available. So that was really neat, to get to be able to see Tel Aviv, Israel. Like, wow. New host doesn't do that. Don't care so much. Still have countries. And somebody in Sweden is still religiously downloading our dumb shit. So thank you.
Good work, Sweden.
Just one person.
I just love the fact that like I love that we're bigger in the US than we are in the UK by like double numbers. It's like I think if I add up the UK and all the other countries, they might just top the US.
Oh wow.
But I mean, obviously, you guys are a pretty big country, so
Indeed.
It's just strange. It's just strange to me, like how it's the internet, man. It's everywhere.
Right. It's it's the novelty of your wacky old accents.
I know we sound
Love
crazy.
to listen to
I was out in Florida. In where was I? I should have pre-thought this before starting the conversation, but I haven't. So go me. I was in Florida. That'll do. I was in Clearwater in Florida.
Oh my gosh, seriously?
Yeah.
I grew up, I spent most of my childhood in St. Petersburg. Clearwater's just down the street.
So I not last November, the November before, I was in Clearwater for about a week, 10 days, because my friend had asked me to be one of his groomsmen.
Sure.
So flew out, had an amazing time. It was my first time to the States as well. And it was quite nice because I didn't feel like a tourist because I wasn't staying in a hotel and then going and doing touristy things. I was living at my friend's house and going out and doing stuff with his friends that they normally do. So like we went and kayaked out to Caladesi Island.
Nice.
That was pretty cool. And then we had the wedding, and the wedding was on Honeymoon Island. And then we got very drunk and ended up in another place where there was bars. But the moral to my story is, maybe not moral, the point to my story is I learned so quickly how that I could just say hi and stop someone's conversation because I wasn't American. There was just moments that it was like I'd order at the bar and the barman was just normal, but then like the person to the left of me waiting to order would just stare me out for so long and then be like, "Are you from England?" I'm like, "Yep." And then that was it. Like suddenly I'd made like a best friend for like an hour and I couldn't leave. Right. The weirdest one was there was a real scary looking dude, big guy, bald head, tattoos, motorbike, like the stereotypical would kick the shit out of me kind of guy. Right. And he went off and got on his motorbike and started it up. And then about 5 minutes later, what I now realize was his girlfriend walked out, and she was just generally talking to me. Just like I heard me talking to. I was out there with another guy from Britain, so we were being a bit loud and drunk, and there was two of us, so it was obvious. And she stood and talked to us for a bit, and then out of nowhere, this man appeared from behind the fence and just grabbed her arm and just pulled her around the corner. He was just like, "Don't talk to the English people." She was like, "Oh, I was having a nice conversation," and then you just heard the bike leave. I was like, "I'm glad it went that way." Could have been a lot worse.
So you were witness to a kidnapping and did nothing.
Well, it might have been a kidnapping. She seemed to know him. You know, I don't know how it works in America. I don't want to get. No, I don't want to get involved. Maybe that's.
I've got a plane to catch in a week.
I need to get home, man. Like, I didn't travel 9.5 hours to witness a kidnapping. That was not on my list of things to do.
I don't think you get to choose that.
Oh, not again. That evening was quite funny though, because we had ended up in somewhere, and it was mainly just breweries, and then one club. But we had gone straight from Honeymoon Island because it was like a national park and it had to shut at like 9 o'clock. So we all had to leave. So then we just went and we drove over to a friend's house and then split into less cars and then drove and had some more beers. But we were full suit still. So I'm there in like, it was kind of sand coloured, the suit. But like waistcoat, white shirt, and then just like suit trousers and shoes. And I looked fucking great. So let's just make that clear. So that was just like, it was almost like I got to this bar and just drunk people looked at me as if they just entered a rom-com. Just like the suited British guy rugged up.
All I can imagine is like Hugh Grant walking through the door and all of my Florida friends, you know, the record scratches, every head turns.
It was basically that. But yeah, that was weird. It was a super weird time. But I want to go back because it was great.
Listen, the United States is not an amusement park for your pleasure.
Yes, it is. Just deal with it.
It's like a fucking zoo, especially Florida.
I loved it. I saw some weird stuff, and I got.
Well, it's Florida.
I mean, so my favorite thing is my friend that lives out there. We went to school together. He was the year above me, but he's lived out. He's a firefighter and an EMT, and he's lived out there for about 8 years. And whenever we go out there, I'm like, "Oh, I'm in a typical American house," and he's like, "I'm not American." I was like, "Well, you sound American," but he sounds like a retarded Australian because he's not English anymore, but he's not American yet. So everyone that he knows met us and was just like, "We thought you sounded British, but now we don't know what you sound like."
That's funny. I went to high school with a kid who was British, and in the space of I think the 2 years that he was in the school, his accent had fallen away really bad, and I think challenged Australian is not wrong.
100%.
I'm sure Simon is listening somewhere, so I'm going to say, just kidding.
Love you, Simon. Yeah, it's super weird. The strangest part of that entire trip for me was I was waiting to cross the road at like a zebra crossing, and a few cars went through, and then one car stopped, and it was like a massive, I can't remember the colour, but it was a massive Hummer. We were having the most American first part of the day, by the way, right? So we had literally gone down to Clearwater Beach, played football on the beach, gone to Hooters, got beer and chicken wings, and we're now going to drive back to get Jim's guns and go to the gun range. It was like I was experiencing as much America in one day because the rest of the time I was like filling everything up with having to help sort out the wedding.
Right.
I just like, it was like, I'm going to make you touristy for like one afternoon and then we can carry on doing normal things. But we were waiting at this crossing and someone stops and I just said thank you. And then my friend had stopped in the middle of the road and was just looking in the car. And I sort of went,
and it was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. I was like, we need to cross the road. And he was like, dude, look in the car. I was like, I will, but keep walking. You're in the middle of the road. And then I turned around and he just nodded at us and drove away. And I was like, I get it now. I understand why you randomly stopped.
Yeah. So my mom used to work at the Department of Motor Vehicles near Clearwater. Servicing Clearwater Beach would be her office. Yeah. And she was, for a time, more or less the personal title and tags clerk to Hulk Hogan and his family.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Sorry to burst your bubble.
Hey, like it was just weird that like it was we couldn't get any flights into Tampa for some reason at the time, so we had to fly to Orlando. Right. So then Jim had to drive out and get us. For us, we flew. I think it was like 1 o'clock our time. So then when we landed, it was 5 o'clock, but for us it was 10 o'clock. And then we had a 2-hour drive to Jim's. So then we get there and it's like 7 o'clock, and he's like, "Oh, I thought I was like we'd have a barbecue." I hadn't met his wife at this point. I was going to their wedding and staying in her house, but I hadn't met her. She's lovely. If Jim and Lauren are listening, which they're definitely not, you're the best. But so we get there, and at this point, like it's midnight for me. So I had like 2 or 3 beers and ate some food, and I was like, I just need to go to bed. Like I'm so tired. But then the next morning, I woke up at like 5 because that felt like it was 10 for me. And then I go outside and my friend Ben's just sat outside in the back garden smoking, like, yep, this is our life now. We're going to have to get up at 5 a.m. every morning. So then they didn't get up till about 9 and we had breakfast. And then like that was the first day that we'd actually had a chance to do anything, even though we'd been there for like an afternoon already. So it was a good start to a day. We shot some guns. That was fun. Never shot a gun before. I was better than I thought I was going to be. Go me. I wasn't good, but no one got shot, and I never missed the target. So,
well, that's all that matters.
Do. If anyone ever attacked me and I had a gun, I'd hit them somewhere. That's what you can take away from that. It wouldn't be a kill shot unless it was by accident, but there would definitely be some maiming.
Any bullet created holes hurt. So
yeah, no, I can imagine they do. It's the one thing that I've always been sure of. I've never been shot, but I'm always sure that it would fucking hurt. It's like my one takeaway from being shot is that it sucks. And no one's out there just like, oh, come on, shoot me. You promised. So I'm assuming it's the worst. Yeah, I hope to never find out.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if it's going to happen, it probably won't happen here. Because in England,
no guns.
There are some. But majoritively, if someone wants to hurt you, they'll just do it with their fists. Or a knife.
Or occasionally a knife. Or occasionally acid.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. That hasn't happened in a while. I say that like it's a regular occurrence. I've missed the acid attacks. I wonder what happened to them. Yeah, that happened. That it was weird. It's like someone bought all the acid and then used it in a year, and now no one has any. It happened. So it happened in a cinema where I live. Yeah,
really.
It wasn't. I don't think it was like as bad as some of them had been. I think it was a small quantity and majoritively missed. But yeah, it happened here, and so we're not far. We're about 25 miles outside of London, so we're not too far, and we're like about the same. We're pretty much dead in the middle of being London to the coast. We're slap bang in the middle, so it's quite nice because we can get to the capital in an hour, or we can get down to the beach in about half an hour. So nice. It's a pretty good place, except for the acid attacks,
which haven't happened in a while. So
here's hoping it doesn't happen again, or at least not for a long time. Because if the only person that could acid attack me right now is my girlfriend, because I'm not allowed to leave the house that often. So if I get acid attacked, I'm going to be pissed. Definitely know who did it.
I think everybody who's acid attacked is pissed.
Well, you never know.
But
maybe someone really hated how their face looked pre
acid attack. Yeah. Like, oh, here's my chance for plastic surgery. Woo-hoo! Yay! No, I don't. I can't imagine that.
Slate.
Jeez.
You know when you say those things and you think that shouldn't have come out my mouth.
I do. I'm well acquainted.
This is nice because I say these things to Jono, and we used to record in the same room, and he'd just look at me because the thing that I'm sure Jono will listen to this. He probably won't get this far in. None of our listeners do, but he'll. It's a little joke I like to say all the time. I don't actually know, and I'll never check because if I check and it's true, it'll hurt. So
no, we're very judgmental of not only ourselves and our show, but each other. I mean, but our listeners too. Like, why are you here?
100%.
We regularly ask them that.
Yeah, I need to know. A couple of friends listen to it and they say they enjoy it, but I can't trust them because I chose them as friends, and so they're probably a bit special. But the thing that no one ever hears is that Jono is a bastard, right? I love him. I have been friends with him for 14 years. We were in school together. We've been in a band together. I'm the better guitarist. Take that. But he's the better photographer. So what people don't hear is like, they hear me, normal me. This is how I am all the time, right? And then Jono's he's a bit more subdued for the podcast. It's coming out a bit more now. But he will say things sometimes that even I'm like, whoa. Okay. Cool, man.
Put that right back in your mouth.
That should not have been put out into the world, but it's too late. It's there now. So now I've got to keep it. Thanks. Sometimes he'll say these things and no one ever hears them. So I kind of want to like covertly, I'm doing that thing now where the evil person like says their whole plan and then they get caught. But I want to covertly like record Jono being a bastard. Because we work together as well. So
wow.
So this is how you know you're good friends. We work together, we play games online together, and we do a podcast together, and we still don't hate each other.
Oh, give it time.
I mean, we'll get to like 30 years, and then it'll start to go downhill. But yeah, like people at work are the same. They're like, I don't see it. He's so lovely and quiet. I'm like, you're all fooled. you fucking idiots.
You've fallen for it.
They have. They all have. Especially the HR department. Bastards. We had an episode recently where Jono he got quarantined at home first because he had a cough. He didn't have the virus, but he was ill. So he got told, don't come in for 14 days. And like 2 days later, him and a load of staff were furloughed and are now getting paid to be at home doing nothing, which is nice for them. I'm apparently business critical in my job, so I'm getting paid to work from home the same amount as I would do normally, while all my colleagues are getting paid and they're not doing any work. It's great.
Isn't it nice to be needed?
No. Not in the fucking slightest.
Yeah, I still, due to the nature of my job, I still go to work every day. So
yeah, I don't think we're too dissimilar in jobs. So both me and Jono work in our IT department for a company, but I am the application support manager. So I look after all the software and oversee any changes from the devs and things like that.
Right.
So at the moment we have like a bare minimum. All I can say is I work for a cycling retailer, but because we have a bare minimum amount of shops open, the tills are running. If the tills are running, someone needs to make sure that that particular bit of software doesn't stop running. That person is me. So I have to work.
Which means you're needed, which is really a corporate way of saying you're loved.
It's shit.
I bitch about it like all the time in the different chat rooms or, DM message, whatever, Twitters.
That was amazing. Chat room, DM, message, Twitters.
Yeah, whatever, wherever
like,
it is.
You just sounded like a 90-year-old man trying to describe what his grandson does.
Yes. Yes. I kind of bitch about like still going to work until I remember that like there are people who don't have jobs anymore because of this shit.
Yeah.
And I feel bad. But at the same time, I really hate going to fucking work. And I really hate that. Like, nothing I do is that critical.
Yeah.
Like, nothing I do is so important that I should really go there every day.
Yeah, see, at least I'm working from home. So I have the commute from bedroom to office. So that's about 30 seconds with no traffic. Sometimes I encounter the girlfriend at the top of the stairs. It takes me about 35 seconds. Then I just have to drink my coffee a little bit quicker before I start work. But other than that, we're fine. Yeah, at least I get to work from home. That's an upside. And I realised the other day how bored I would be if I wasn't working from home.
Right.
Because I've been playing games. That's fine. I've been upcycling a load of old furniture that I had that I wanted to do, but I hadn't bothered to do. And so that's great. The office is going to get repainted and sorted out, and that's great. I've probably reorganized it. I bought a new guitar. That came today. That was great. It's called the Hellcat. What a great name for a guitar. And it has skulls on the fret. It's brilliant. But I'm realizing we're only in week 3, and it's possibly like 6 to 8 weeks. And Monday to Friday, if I had nothing to do, I would have gone mental by now.
Still have time.
Yeah, I mean, normally I'm not so this is the problem with the lockdown for me is Jono's perfectly fine chilling at home. He enjoys it, which is great for him. For me, I'm very rarely at home. If I'm not at work or at the gym or in a studio rehearsing with the band, then I am out with friends or doing something with the girlfriend, like not being at home. And now I have all this time, and it's great because I'm getting ahead of podcasts, because normally we're like recording 3 days before it's meant to go out, and that's the first time in like 2 weeks Jono's been able to tie me down to actually record something. But it's killing me, man. It's killing me. I like my house, but not this much. Like, it's driving me insane.
No, you're fine. You'll be fine.
I won't be.
Okay, well.
But the upside is we baked brownies earlier, so I get a warm brownie after this. It's the little things.
Is that a weird British euphemism?
No. It's actually brownies.
Okay.
I don't even want to know what that would be a euphemism for. There is so many things, and none of them should be mentioned out loud.
Nope.
Some more than others. And on that horrendous notice, I would like to briefly fire through the other story that you had that we've totally forgotten existed. Because there's a good reason I want to get through this. And I say briefly because this is a lot of editing. So, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, there is a reason our episodes are like 30 to 40 minutes. Because we record like 50, 10 of it gets cut out, and anything past that, I'm like, fuck, there's so much left to edit. This is an hour and 7. There's a story coming up. So I'm going to be like, double fuck, this is a lot to edit. But I have a name for this episode. I wrote it down while we were talking, and if we don't do this last bit, then it doesn't work, and I'm lazy. So I'd rather just do the editing in the future so that now Stephen doesn't have to do some work and think about a new podcast title. So I'm going to call this one UFO, 2 podcasts, 3 crashes.
Nice.
Solid fucking name.
I think it's great.
Yeah, they call me the name maker. They don't, but they should.
they don't call you the name maker.
No, they don't, and they never will, but I will, and that's all that I need. Also, I'm really happy that the last 20 minutes of the conversation has been somewhat bullshit, because our episodes start with a bit of a clip, and then it goes into the intro, and that's always a bit of bullshit. So now it's just I might have 20 minutes, and then the intro, and then you'll hear that 20 minutes later. And also, you might get to feature in the bloopers reel, because if you didn't hear the bloopers reel from season 1, you should listen to it, because I break down often.
Great.
There's something about me being told I can't laugh too much that makes my brain turn everything to shit.
Yeah.
It's like when I'm on stage and I know that I can't say anything too horrendous or swear too much through the microphone when I'm talking to a crowd, and all I want to do is swear and say horrendous things through the microphone when I'm talking to the crowd.
Like all those jokes that were cool in the 80s, or maybe even into the 90s.
Yeah, don't do those now.
No, don't bring back the best of Adam Sandler's early work. It's a bad idea. Dennis Leary? Absolutely not. No.
It's like, I'm just going to go with, how's everyone doing out there tonight? And then I'm going to play my guitar. And then I might be a bit drunker for the second set. We'll see what happens.
Okay, so UFO, yeah?
Side note before we get on to that. Our front man said last time, we did it was the last gig we did, and it was on the 13th of March, and it was in an underground, well, all cellars are underground, so it was in a cellar underneath the pub. And the room had a capacity of about 60, and we were quite near capacity, and everyone's like right in each other's pockets listening to us play, and everyone's kind of thinking, I hope no one in here has got COVID-19, and everyone else on the stage was thinking, nobody bring up that there is a virus going around. And about 1 minute into the first set, our front man is just like, hey, it's really cool that everyone came out tonight, thanks for staying. Even though, you know, there's a pandemic on and everyone's getting ill. I was like, why? Why would you do that? The next person to cough's going to get fucking ruined.
On the list of shit not to said right now.
It was like right at the top.
Yep. Survey says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full points there, sir. Well done. Massive fuck up. Goes to Gary. Anyway, UFOs.
Yeah.
Unidentified fucking objects.
Unidentified fuckery over there.
Overhead.
Over there you go.
Bam, the name maker.
So, there we are. At this point, I'm stationed at a place called Wallops Island, Virginia, which is on the eastern shore. If you were to look at a map of the Maryland, Virginia area, the eastern shore on the Atlantic side of the states, there's a peninsula, which is Delaware and Maryland and a little bit of Virginia down at the bottom. I'm working over there, it's kind of by Chincoteague Island, if you wanted a frame of reference. I lived, however, in the state of Maryland because that's where I was born, and was able to, so that was cool. But I lived on the Chesapeake Bay side, in a tiny little town called Deal Island, or we actually lived in Chance, I suppose. Anyway, to get there is about a 15-mile drive from the highway that I would use to get to work and get to every other cool place there is. And this 15 miles goes from normal rural residential to kind of swampy, kind of maybe moorish if you're over there in the UK land. And then it's coastal, like tidal, islandy kind of shit. Really kind of cool place. We lived in an ancient house that was older than deeds. So nobody knew how old the actual original structure was. Whatever. It was super fucking cool until we're driving home late one night and the whole family's in the minivan. Yes, minivan at this point, because I had 5 kids under, well, I guess the oldest would have been 11 at this point, maybe.
Okay.
Neither here nor there. What matters is this: I'm driving along, and it's kind of a causeway where waters on either side are very narrow, beachy, mangrovey kind of areas. Wide open sky, nothing above us, stars, and no light pollution or anything. So you can really get a sense of how vast our great universe is. Oh my God, why are those lights doing that? And so I'm looking and I'm driving, and it's late enough that like the kids are asleep. My wife's kind of zoned out, if not dozing. And so I'm staring at the sky, and there's this arrangement of lights that are moving together, like every black triangle UFO story you've ever heard. And so I kind of just pull over for a minute, and I nudge my wife, and I say, "What the fuck is that?"
Just so you know, right now, I decided to just look up on Google Maps what you're talking about, just so I can get an idea. 2 things happened. One, you said Chesapeake, right? Virginia. Yeah. Okay. 2 things. One, the only reason I know where that is because of Hannibal, the TV show. If you haven't seen it, they call Hannibal the Chesapeake Ripper for a while. So as soon as you said it, all I thought was Chesapeake River, and I was like, that's not a real person. Why do I know this? And second of all, I see what you mean. It's very, very green.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a zoo. I'm getting distracted.
Now look at Chance, Maryland.
Okay.
That's where we were actually living. So I'm looking at this thing in the sky, which it's a starry night, but not too starry. There are these 3 lights, which are kind of slowly transitioning from white to green, maybe.
Yeah.
And they weren't solid lights. They were definitely cycling through a color, but they were also maintaining their distance. Now,
Okay.
helicopters have lights, sure. I've seen a helicopter or 1,000 fly in my days in the Navy.
Yeah.
I know that no 3 pilots on this great Earth can maintain that kind of separation for that long and perfectly emulate the other's movements such that their orientation never changes. And these lights were very, very steady in relation to me, no matter how the distance or the height away.
Yeah.
One thing never changed, and that was their relationship to each other. And that's what freaked me out.
No, understandable.
I guess I default to science in most of my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of weird in that, like, I'm willing to accept that everything exists. It's our old joke from our old intro is that we won't talk conspiracies because they're all true or false. You know, I'm willing to be presented with data.
Yep.
Either way, I don't care. I'm willing to accept aliens when an alien lands in my backyard and says, I'll be like, yeah, my name's Jeff. How can I help you?
Well, hold up. Let's not skip over how great that impression of an alien was. At least I think it is. I've never spoken to an alien. Damn. Okay.
Neither have I. No.
It sounded like there was one in the room. So.
Oh, well. Anyway, so but at the same time, like I'm not that guy. Like, I know a lot about the flat Earth or flat Earth story, whatever, however you want to hear it, because I'm interested, not because I believe that the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sitting here looking at these lights, and I'm like, okay, nothing I know of can do this. Nothing is that large, because it was, by all appearances, it was a large singular object that was triangular in shape. Only 3 lights marking the corners, not the chevron style formation of the Phoenix lights or Texas. I think there was a sighting in Texas that had more of a 5 or 7 lights arranged in a chevron at the leading edge of the black triangle or whatever. So different, but odd, really fucking odd. And where we were living was across Chesapeake Bay from a place called Patuxent River Naval Air Station. And that place is home to some fun activities of things that people don't want you to see every time. They do some testing there. But nothing like Area 51. Pax River is just a place where Navy does some testing, and they don't always do it in the daytime.
Yeah.
But also, no engine sounds, no Doppler kind of effect thing going on from anything from this thing. Just lights, just odd motions. And then they all went up fast and gone.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was fucking weird.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's how I'd put it. Damn. I've always kind of wanted to see something like that. Because, like, legitimately, I think there is more. I mean, scientifically as well, there's more chance of there being intelligent life out there than there is of, like, ghosts.
Right.
Not to say that I am a full believer or disbeliever in either, but scientifically there is more chance of one than the other that we understand anyway. But I've always been like, kind of want to see some funky light shit. Like,
yeah,
I want to see it because I've never seen it, and I think it would freak me out a lot, but I want to see it. And like a legitimate something, not something that I could easily explain away.
Right. And that's, I don't know, the first couple of days afterwards, like, it weighed heavy on the mind, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I remember just like, I can't explain it away. I want to, like, I want to work to making an explanation, and none fit really well.
No.
So here I sit. This is, gosh, I guess 12 years later.
I zoomed out from where I was looking at the where everything. Every time you were talking, I was just looking at where things were. So I was looking at the Prax River stuff, and I zoomed out, and the words "mutual consent" came up on the screen, which confused me.
What?
But when I zoom in, there seems to be a place called Mutual, and there also seems to be a place called Mutual Consent. It's Consent Drive. And so when you zoom out, it says mutual consent. And I was just like, all right.
What the fuck?
Can you see it?
I haven't even pulled up a map, but I'm going to have to now.
Yeah, I mean, it says mutual, and it's like, okay, that's not too weird. And then there's Consent Drive, and when you zoom out, it says mutual consent. And I'm like, okay, it's weird.
Oh yeah, no shit.
Wait. If you zoom out well enough, just below that on the right-hand side, there's another place. As in, it's literally just another place.
Oh my gosh.
Someone just gave the fuck up while naming these places.
No, I don't know. There's history. I'm sure it's rooted in your part of the world.
What happened over there? Oh, it's just another place. Oh, we'll call it that.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean, what I like is that there's also, when I was just scrolling around, there's also another Hollywood and another California. just
there
across.
Is a California, Maryland. Yeah.
There's also a Scotland, which I like.
Yeah.
Which is weirdly shaped the same way that our Scotland is, just upside down. It's just like on the peak of something. Well, okay. I'm going to round this episode off. Otherwise, I'm going to be talking about American place names. Oh, there's a place called Issue. That's amazing. So I'm going to give this map to Jono, and we're just going to pick out this. Like an hour of just us going mutual consent. Like just scrolling through, seeing Surprise Hill. That's the opposite to mutual consent.
Jesus Christ, that is funny. Surprise!
Shit! I knew we should have gone to mutual consent. Right. Anyway, I'm giving up on this. There's an owl trap. Oh. Anyway, I'm going to close Google Maps because that's a problem for me. I found my new weird addiction. This has been marvelous.
It's been a lot of fun
joining me. I've loved every second of it. Thank you for the stories.
Sure.
How about? I mean, this is great because you get like 2 promos this season. Because I have your other promo, and that's obviously going to go in an episode. But why don't you just tell the people where they can hear more of your voice?
Oh, they don't want to do that.
Yeah, well, they're listening to me, so they might want to.
Okay, that's cool. We are
a little bit hurt by
that. We're on all the socials, or most of the socials, at R&R the podcast. You can find Round and Round wherever you get your podcasts. I do have a second show, which is very different, in so much as it's still my voice and I still write everything and do all of the research, but it's about cars and bikes and whatnot. It's called Half Fast, and if I ever get it worked out with Apple, it'll be back available to everyone. Nice. And you can at Half Fast Podcast me too.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's, first of all, great name.
Thank you.
Second of all, I might have to check that out because that sounds like it's up my street. And third of all, thank you again. This has been marvelous. I now have a lot of minutes to edit. When this comes out, it might just be 10 minutes. And it's like I'm just playing all your stories at 2 times speed because I don't want to miss them. And then it's just me going, hi, and thanks at the end. But yeah, it's been good. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it. That's all.
Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, in true us fashion, I'm going to end this episode now with not really any real thought. So say bye.
Okay, bye.